I realize that the cliche phrase that get out of your comfort zone sounds very harsh sometimes. I mean, if somebody come and talk to me, hey Ruben, get out of your house, there's something like that, because house is your most comfortable zone, right? But I would rather they expand their comfort zone.
Welcome back to Data Crunch, where we talk about the ABCD, artificial intelligence, big data, cloud computing, and data science. Now, after a long hiatus, a few months of not doing Data Crunch, we are back with another episode of Data Crunch together with me, Dr. Lau, and myself, Ruben. Now today, we're going to talk strictly about the mindset of data scientists. Having done a few courses and programs over the months and years that we've been running Elite, we have noticed a pattern in some of our students and also some of the partners we work with. Now, one very important thing about learning to be or becoming a data scientist is the mindset of that person. Is he having a growth mindset or is he having a fixed mindset? Now, this determines whether he'll be successful or not when becoming a data scientist. But before we get into that, Dr. Lau, since you're here, let's talk about what makes a data scientist successful in terms of mindset.
People talk about data scientists, they think they need to be someone who is strong in technical skills. Having a good technical skill is a must for anybody who are in the top 20% of your career. A top 20%, even though the mechanics, they need to have a very good, solid foundations of technical skills. So I don't think technical skills is an important element in the equation. It's a must-have in the equation. Then we talk about other things like soft skills. If you don't have a growth mindset, you won't be able to go out and look for challenges. And that is what's going to kill your data science career, because a big part of a data science career is know how to ask the right questions. And our daily jobs involves taking business questions to a data science technical problem. So if you don't know how to ask questions and you don't have a baby curiosity, I think that's going to be a big obstacle in a data scientist career.
So let's talk about the difference between a growth mindset. If I were to explain the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset, let's just imagine I'm someone who is an accountant. I've been working in accounting for maybe 20, 30 years. I'm maybe 40 plus years old, quite near to my retiring years, right? At that stage, I believe that I'm going to be an accountant and an accountant forever. There's nothing else I can do because I'm set for life that way. So that is sort of like a fixed mindset. Now, a growth mindset, on the other hand, maybe I'm the same person, but I believe I can still learn something extra. I'm not just an accountant. I can always top up extra skills that's on top being an accountant. So that's my definition of growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Now, what's your definition, Dr. Lau?
Somebody with a fixed mindset is they don't want to take actions. Whenever they see something that is hard, right, that is a bit challenging, they will avoid doing that. That's more on the defensive side. If not, they will just say, oh, why do I have to do that? And why do I have to switch to another JavaScript framework when the one that I learned 20 years ago is still working fine? When someone have a growth mindset, they are always out there looking for ways to do things more efficiently. Whenever there's a new technologies coming out, whenever there's a new product coming out, they're willing to try. And their willingness is not something like, oh, there's a new iPhone 13, iPhone 14, so let's get a new one so that I can show off in front of my friend. I want to get the latest phone to see what are the new features that came out. Then how can I use that to make me a more valuable person, and how can it help me to improve my communication skills, my productivity? And if you are running a small business, then you'll be thinking like, hey, how can I use this to offer new range of services, new range of products that help to improve my customers, maybe their user experience, and maybe their improve their services, and so that they can enjoy better quality products, better quality services at the same price or at a lower price.
What you mean is basically someone with a growth mindset is willing to try something different and willing to break whatever that he or she believes in right now and try something totally different and see the possibilities of doing that. The classes that you run at LEAD, we have seen our fair share of students, some who are excellent and some who did not actually complete the program or did not actually become what they want to be or get their goal. One very common, I would say, fixed mindset that students sometimes bring with, a fixed baggage that they bring with into the program is, in data science specifically, there will be students who say, I don't know how to code. I'm not from a tech background. And I always believe that if you self-talk, right, your self-talk will tell yourself like, okay, I'm not in tech, so when I learn something, when I learn maybe Python or programming, I will find something to justify that, I'm not a tech person. Now, what's your take on that? How are we able to help those kind of students?
If we look at industry standards, right, the completion rate of any sort of self-learn program, other than university degree, right, people always have a completion rate about 8 to 10% at most. Completing the course doesn't mean that they really learn something. It's just sometimes they thought, oh, yeah, I have paid for it, and then I might as well complete it and get a cert. And some people, you just fly through the questions and pick up some of the key points, pass the exam. So this happens in every industry. What I notice when I'm teaching our program is that we give the students some small wins, whether is it they launch their first website, or they build their first dashboard, or they build their first machine learning models, and then they can plug in some of their data sets from their company. All these things are easily achievable, and when we are there to give them the support, and when they have a community, right, this is not about peer pressure, but it's about peer support. So what I encourage the students is to try something, get some small wins, and expand their comfort zone. I realize that the cliche phrase that get out of your comfort zone sounds very harsh sometimes. I mean, if somebody come and talk to me, hey Ruben, get out of your house, there's something like that, because house is your most comfortable zone, right? But I would rather they expand their comfort zone. So it's okay if they don't know how to write code, then start to write a few lines of code. You are not expected to write 50 lines of code in your day one. I think this is the key difference, having a peer support group and also small wins every day.
Dr. Lai, you're talking about small wins, and when a student joins something like Data Science Uncut Bootcamp, which is a daily lesson, daily assignment sort of thing where they work on something small every single day, they sort of like see the possibility of doing something compared to someone who, goes into an online data science course, watch all the video and then figure out, wow, this looks so huge, I don't think I can work on such a complex project. Whereas when these students actually take small steps, right, they see the possibilities of completing certain stuff, and that builds up confidence. Speaking about that, right, when it comes to working on real life complex analytics projects, huge projects, you don't know where to start, how do you normally approach those kind of projects, complex ones?
A lot of people, when they get big projects, either they get too intimidated or either they get too excited. Yeah, I haven't seen somewhere in between there. So number one is to follow a framework. So we do have awesome framework that everybody needs to follow. And following a framework doesn't mean that, you don't have any freedom to try out different tools or do things your own way. It's just that a guiding step so that you won't miss out any important steps and you won't jump into the latest steps too early, or you don't do something premature way. So that's number one. And number two, I think Ruben, you have mentioned it, you have put it in a very good way, is that you cut it down into smaller pieces. There's a riddle say, how do you put an elephant into a fridge? You just step number one, open the fridge, and then step number two, put the elephant in. Step number three, remember to shut the door, right? So it's the same thing. When you have the right tools, when you have the right people, when you have the right components, you just have to break down the task into smaller chunks, into bite size. And a lot of people, when they hear the word bite size, they think like, must be very small. They write down into very fine grain. Day one, 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, Ruben, check where the data sources are. It's not about that. Somebody can take a bigger bite, right? So maybe just day one, check the data sources. So let's say we have 15 data sources. Some of them are Excel files, some of them from the databases. Okay, fine, allocate one day. And once you are familiar with the workflow, and once you're familiar with the time required to complete a task, and that become a breeze.
By the way, if you do not know what's an awesome framework, we have placed down the link in the show notes below. Go and check it out in our blog. Now, the awesome framework is a data science framework, and for people who have been in data science, they might find the awesome framework to be, do we really need a framework? That's because they already have imbued that framework inside of them, so they don't have to visually see a framework to begin working on a project. But for beginners, people who are starting off with data science, now a framework essentially just chunks down the tasks in a data science project so that you know where to start, you have a head, and you have a tail to start. You know a process to follow that, and the process basically is chunking down the whole big, large project. So you're not just bombarded with a whole complex project and you don't know where to start and freeze up, which is the case of many beginners in data science, I would presume, right? Now, let's talk about how many things should I learn? So we've also came across students or individuals who believe that, well, they should learn one thing and not another thing. If I'm a digital marketer, for example, can I go into data science? Will I be good at that? Will I lose out to other people because now I'm dividing my talents, right? What are your thoughts on that, Dr. Lau?
So let me use digital marketing as an example. When you ask somebody, say, what is the one thing that I need to learn in digital marketing? People will say SEO, search engine optimization, because the outcome is you want the search engine to be able to understand your content, and then you want people to be able to search your website on the first page. And you see that in a lot of groups as well, right? People just advertise, I'm an SEO marketing expert. But that is not true. If you apply the infamous first principle, right? SEO is to write content that gets you to the first page of the search result page. But why do you want to get there, or how do you want to get there? It's actually write something that people want to read. Why would people want to read something? They probably want to be informed, they want to be educated, or in a simple words, they just want their questions to be answered. The fundamental thing is you need to learn how to write so that people want to read, not you go and learn some SEO techniques. And SEO techniques changes every day. So it goes back to data science, right? It's the same thing. The first principle of a data science project is to analyze the data and get insights out of it. Whether you use Python, whether you use mathematics, you use statistics, you use Tableau, those are all tools. And if you kept yourself busy with learning all those tools, right, you will be like a headless chicken running around. Because every day there are new tools, every day there are new frameworks, every day there will be new analytics projects, like new AI framework, new deep learning packages, and so on. But what you really need to learn as a beginner when you break into data science is to understand how is this data generated. So if you go to, let's say, a medical field, right, you realize that, okay, this is a particular test kit and the test kit is 75% accurate. So you should apply the first principle to help you to collect data and understand, what does this 75% mean? Is that means that out of 100 positive cases, 75 positive cases are able to be detected, or only 25% of the positive cases are not able to be detected. So there are many different ways to interpret the results, to understand the data, and that does not require any shiny tools. And that should be the starting point of everybody.
It's like, to share an analogy, it would be like learning how to do carpentry, but instead of learning how to do carpentry, you learn the tools like how to hammer, how to saw, how to use nails, but not carpentry. So the fundamentals and foundations are still very important. Now let's end this data crunch with a question for you, Dr. Lau. Now, what are you excited about in a data science career?
At the beginning of my career, I'm very excited to see that the models that I built are able to predict the future. You'll be like, wow, this is really amazing. And then as I grow and as I learn many other different skills, I think at this point of time, what excited me most is that I can use some analytics skills and mathematics skills, right, to tell me something that you can't see from the data itself, meaning that by looking at the data, you won't be able to tell. And only after you have applied some data skills, then you will be able to uncover some of the insights. Let me give you an example. Let's say e-commerce stuff. You are only able to tell these are the sales, these are the projected sales, and these are the demographics of our customers at most, right? But with some personalization recommendation engines technique apply, then you are able to see that, hey, how come people who bought, maybe you realize that somebody who bought a water bottle, they also buy color pencils, for example. Then you realize that, oh, these are not just 35 years old male who is working. These are 35-year-old males who are also a father, right? Because they bought water bottle and color pencil for their kids. And these sort of insights give us a lot of possibilities and allow us to do things differently. And sometimes, or oftentimes, it surprises our customers in a fun way. So this is the thing that I really like about data science. And there are a lot of or say endless opportunities and possibilities that we can explore and try out.
So to borrow some of the things that excites you in data science, I think for those of you who are watching and want to go into data science or get a data career, If you are someone who is excited about uncovering insights that nobody knows and uncovering insights from data and using that to fuel a business for more revenue or to reduce costs, if you enjoy that, then probably a data science career would be something for you. Do check us out in Data Science 360, that's our certification program. Or if you like to go through a 30 days program where you do bit by bit, get small wins each day, then check out Data Science Uncut Bootcamp and see when is the next intake opening up in the next few months. That's all for us today. Thank you for joining us in Data Crunch. We'll see you in the next episode. And anything else to say, Dr. Lau? If not,
Yeah, that's all. Thank you very much, and see
Alright.
you in the next episode.
bye-bye.